Welcome, one and all. Here we are, back in the studio, San Diego, California. That is our headquarters, our home from the iHeart Media and Entertainment Studios. It is Garden America. Happy weekend. Kicking things off, I'm Brian Main, along with Tiger Palafox. A few minor glitches just prior to going on the air. What were we about? I think we're about, 10 seconds late, 15 seconds late.
Oh, FCC is going to be all over us.
All over us, right? Usually we try to get on the air at 6 minutes after the hour. That could be 6 minutes after 8, 9, 11, depending upon where you are across the country. But it's Tiger, myself, Brian Main. I was surprised this morning when I met you in the parking lot and you said, no John today.
Yeah, no John today.
And it's like, wait a second,
He's
he was
busy
off last
doing
week.
family stuff. I know. He's
we can let him
such
in.
a busy guy.
There's a wedding, right? There's a wedding going on.
There's a wedding going on. He's got to get ready for that.
So he's getting ready for his son's wedding.
Yeah, not his wedding.
Not his wedding.
He's already married.
Reconfirming his vows. So again, it's just you and I. No guest this week.
No. Well, we were planning on having a guest from the Santa Barbara Orchid Show.
Right, because the newsletter said possible guest, we're not sure.
Right. And, no matter what, they have a lot going on up there. Couldn't work it all out. But, we can talk about orchids still. And, there's also the Philadelphia Flower Show. I got some info that happened as well. There's a lot happening right now. It is spring to some degree in the sense of this is the time when all of these events start to happen. It is the beginning of it. The music and movie industry have their award season. This is the gardening season.
Everybody's waking up.
Yes.
Now, we had some good rain.
Oh, right?
I'm telling you.
We
fell.
Had
flood advisory warnings in Scripps Ranch where I live.
Wow.
So, yeah, things got soaked. Things look really good.
And the nice thing about it is we're getting these rains that space themselves out.
Right.
So we get a good rain. It allows the ground to absorb it,
dry out a little bit.
Dry out a little bit. And then we're projected to get a little bit more rain next week. So should be nice because that's going to be just in time for you to not have to turn on your irrigation system again. And now you get another couple weeks where you can just let nature water for you. With San Diego water prices going up as well, it's a good savings.
If you get the newsletter, we were talking about orchids a few moments ago.
Yeah.
Nice article about orchids. The newsletter was full of orchid information. John's article dealt with, what you should or shouldn't do. People thinking you should do this or that to orchids when maybe you shouldn't as far as growing and propagating orchids. So if you get a chance, if you haven't read the newsletter yet, we're going to be talking about orchids today to some degree.
Yeah.
Check it out. You can learn a lot about orchids and maybe some myths that we can debunk today. Do you have orchids at home?
I love orchids. They're one of my favorite plants.
They are.
And I have a bunch. And I have a little orchid area, orchid hospital that I put them in between blooming cycles.
Right.
So, yeah, I love them.
And people can overwater orchids. That was in the newsletter as well.
Huge. Yep.
You got to be careful. So again, the newsletter, great source of information if you're into orchids. And I think orchids are one of those things where you buy one, you buy two, now you're hooked because there's so many different varieties of orchids. And I caught myself getting into that category at one time too.
And especially if you can get them to rebloom, a lot of people will just buy them as like a cut flower, so to speak, and
throw it away.
It blooms, throw it away, get a new one,
buy another one.
But that's why I say I have a little orchid hospital because I collect them, and then when they're not in bloom, obviously you don't have them in your windowsill. You don't put them on the counter. You they're not that great to have out there. So you put them in the little hospital. You see that spike again. Now it's time to bring it back in the house, show it off. It's done blooming, back outside.
So that's the key right there. I think a lot of people may think, I don't know, that just seems too difficult in between blooms. What do I do? So what do you do when you buy an orchid and then it starts to look a little peaked? It looks like it's dying, but it's not. What's the key? What does your hospital do for your orchids?
So the key thing is, number one, outside. A lot of people think that orchids need to be kept inside all the time, but that's not the case. As a matter of fact, Phalaenopsis need a chill to bloom. So Phalaenopsis, which is like the moth orchid, what you see at the grocery store 90% of the time.
Trader Joe's a good place.
Exactly. Yeah, they always have them right when you walk in. And a lot of people think, I just have to keep it inside. No, your interior house temperature is usually kept somewhere between 69 and 75 degrees. And that's way too warm for them to bloom again. They need that chill. So outside, protected, patio, porch, something like that.
Indirect sunlight because you don't want to burn the leaves.
That is 100% true because they also think about where they're native to, under canopies.
Right.
Yes, they are warm, sunny areas, but they're under canopies. They're protected. And then, like what you said, they can get overwatered. So they need to have that airflow. So wherever they're at, they need to have airflow all around them, top and bottom. A lot of orchids are just in bark, and so they just need to make sure that the root system isn't sitting in water.
Right.
And if you do that, you got an orchid hospital. Anything will rebloom in that area.
I think orchids are very cool. They just basically need a host.
Yeah.
They need some place to set up roots.
Yep.
They're
just
not
something to attach onto. Remember when we were in Costa Rica, we just see them in the trees?
Yeah.
Everywhere.
All over. Yeah, all over the place.
And it's true. Orchids are the largest
Epiphyte?
well, not just
No, there's bigger ones.
but the largest family, largest genus of plants, with so many varieties, so many different areas they grow. And then there's these weird orchids that grow like in the Alps and different areas like that.
Right.
People think like, oh, orchid, it's Costa Rica and Hawaii. No.
Yeah,
There's orchids all over the world.
So that show is this weekend, Santa Barbara?
Yeah, up there in Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if anybody had a chance to go by or plans to go by, let us know.
Yeah, please.
I can imagine
Share some photos.
Any kind of convention or get together, whether it's a reptile convention, orchid show, rose show, whatever. You have a lot of like-minded people there.
Oh, they should do like a combo event where it's like you got the reptiles over here, the orchids over here, and then the miniature pine trees or something.
I think it's the closest thing you can get to as an adult when you were a kid going into a toy store looking around.
Right.
And when you're an adult, it's kind of the same thing. You're like, wow,
Yeah.
look I didn't even know this existed.
Yeah.
How much is that? Can I get one of those? How do you grow it?
Be so much fun to kind of just peruse the aisles and talk to people and see what you want. I mean, we go to the plumeria show, and I'm like that. I always pick up 2 or 3 new plumerias.
Yeah, you have to. It's kind of an unwritten rule that before you leave, you must make a purchase.
Yeah, the only thing about orchids, they can be pretty pricey, right?
Oh, of course, yeah.
They are not fast growing all the time like some of the other plants are. So they're the reason why price goes up on plants is the rate of reproduction and the ease of it growing. The harder they are to grow and the slower they are to reproducing each other, the price of any plant's going to go up. So
the harder they are
to grow. Yeah.
The price is going to. Now you would think. So you're saying that the easier they are to grow, the price is lower.
Oh, easy, yeah. Because if I'm growing an agapanthus, I could pretty much drop it in my front yard and it would grow. So for a grower who is growing 10,000 agapanthus, it's really easy. They put it in some pot with some soil, they water it, they fertilize it, the plant grows. But now, we talk about bougainvillea, they don't transplant real well.
No.
So for a grower, they can't just put it in a 1 gallon, then put it into a 5, and then put it into a 15. It's much more difficult. They're going to lose a few along the way when they do that, or they're going to start that 1 gallon in a 15 and then just let it put its whole life in there rather than do the transplant because they're going to lose some, right? So they have loss that they're going to factor into the price of the plant. And right then and there, they might lose 10 to 20%.
Right.
Where in agapanthus, you don't lose any percentage.
So if you have a plant or, take a dive into trying to grow something that you haven't grown before, and like you say, it's going to be harder. This is going to be harder to grow. It's going to take longer.
Yeah.
And it's going to cost you more money because of that.
Yeah.
Wow, you're taking kind of a chance because it's not easy to grow. You're gonna spend this money hoping you can do it because it's harder and it takes longer. You don't see your return quite as quickly.
Right.
So it's kind of a gamble. You're rolling the dice in a sense.
It's not
so
a gamble. It's not a gamble if you listen to the show and you know how to grow things.
That's true. But a lot of people, you go to a box store and this that they're selling things out of season.
Oh, right.
It's like wait a minute, hold on here. And the average person, the lay person who's, they don't spend their whole life in the garden. Oh, this looks nice. I think I'll make a purchase. It looks so pretty in the store.
Right.
And then they get home. And it's like, what happened to this thing? You'll need to keep a good eye on the comments.
Yeah, I'm watching right now.
Okay. We have a break coming up here in just about a minute. Do you have that quote? John's quote?
I do.
And again, John is not here. John is home preparing for a wedding today. 2 weeks off. So we'll give him a hard time next week.
So the quote, I read this book per John's recommendation, Susan Orlean's from The Orchid Thief. This is where the quote is from. And it's a really interesting story. If anybody has a chance to read The Orchid Thief, read it. Number one, it's to some degree political when it comes to plants. And then it also gives you a bit of insight in plant hunting and all of the fun stuff that, whenever we're looking for new plants. When a man falls in love with orchids, he'll do anything to possess the one he wants. It's like chasing a green-eyed woman or taking cocaine.
Yeah, the cocaine
it's
reference.
a sort of madness. I don't know where Susan Orlean came up with that because maybe she had a lot of experience with cocaine and green-eyed women, but
But you're right. Hey, got to take a break. Welcoming our friends, listeners on Biz Talk Radio. I'm Brian Main, along with Tiger Palafox. John is off for the weekend, so we're going to take a break and pay some bills. A big thanks to Fertilome, our major sponsor. Biz Talk Radio. This break is for you. Stay with us. Okay, we are back. Thank you to those tuned in on Biz Talk Radio. Big thank you to Stephanie, in charge of keeping us on the air nationally on Biz Talk Radio, Stephanie and her team, so thank you. The rest of us on Facebook Live, Biz Talk Radio, Facebook Live every weekend here on Garden America. Brian Main, John Bagnasco usually, and Tiger Palafox as we talk about a lot of things this morning. No guest. We kicked the show off talking about orchids. Anybody with any questions or comments so far, Tiger?
Oh, yeah. We've got Tanya and Carla and Lenore and Kevin and Hastam on the program with us. And
Beautiful.
A lot of them are talking about the newsletter photos, because John did such a wonderful job this week putting together that newsletter with the different orchid photos and different articles and stuff. But, with our guest, I, number one, had a paintbrush lily photo in there. Really unique plant. I'll have to do a close-up photo of the bloom because number one, I started off with that one plant a few years back that John gave to me. Now it's got 3 blooms on it.
Yeah, it's in the newsletter for those that do get the newsletter.
Right. So the close-up bloom is very pretty. The far-away bloom almost doesn't do it justice.
You could put that on our page right now, right? That picture?
It's on, yeah. I'll do it on our page.
On the feed.
Yeah, I'll
do
that right now.
Yeah, those that are watching right now can click and take a look at it. Yeah, very nice. It looks like, I told you, like a Dr. Seuss plant.
Yeah.
It just doesn't look real. It's very, very nice.
And then it's funny. Then Sherry had a Protea picture.
Right.
But
who had the outdoor lighting?
So that's Tanya.
Yeah,
Tanya. And it's funny because it's a outdoor light. It's covering her water feature, beautiful plants all the way around.
We talked about outdoor lighting was it last week or 2 weeks ago?
No, last week.
It was last week, right.
Yeah.
So
and it's funny because then there's the chatter on how did they get the light up there? And, they copper conduit running into the lamp, it's got a nice patina now because of the copper.
Yeah, exactly.
So, there's a fun chat going on right now with our listeners. So thank you very much for joining the program, everyone. And, it's kind of we talk about right now, it's also going to be garden walk season coming up where people walk or take tours and go into people's homes. And they get this inspiration from seeing other people's yards. Mm-hmm. Well, that's our newsletter too.
I want to do that.
Yeah.
Why can't I do that?
Now they can do that. So, Carla says, Tiger, I put my moth orchids outside to make room for my Christmas decor, and now 2 of them have new bloom spikes. Yep. You just move them outside for a little bit, protected area, and they'll bloom right away for you. And then Sherry, thank you. After our trip to Africa, I need to change up my landscape. She got inspired on her trip.
She got ideas from Africa.
Exactly.
I don't think, though, Sherry, legally you can keep a lion out where you live. You might want to double check with the county on that.
Oh, wow. Can you imagine a lion?
Well, you know who had a lion in their backyard back in the day? Now, some of our listeners will know the name. You know who Tippi Hedren is?
No.
Tippi Hedren is the mother of Melanie Griffith.
Okay.
And
she had a lion?
Tippi Hedren was in, I believe, The Birds, Alfred Hitchcock.
Oh, that movie?
Anyway, her and her husband at the time, for some reason, they had lions. And they're living in L.A. I don't know. I'm assuming it was out and about someplace.
Yeah.
But they had a lion, like, around their pool and just as part of the family. And I think a few things might have happened. A love bite might have gone too far.
Oh, my goodness.
But, speaking of lions there, so didn't mean to get you off track.
Sherry wrote, shh, be quiet.
Right.
Don't let them know. Another fun event that's happening this weekend is Tomato Mania at Mission Hills Nursery.
At your nursery.
Yeah. So if you're in the San Diego area and you're looking to get your selection of tomatoes, right now is the time to go and visit the nursery. And hundreds and hundreds of varieties of tomatoes: small, big, compact, giant,
sweet, sour,
yellow, purple,
we
red,
talked about last
orange.
week. What was the
sweet aperitif? Sweet
well, no, we
100?
talked about that, but then I brought up the fact that like a sandwich tomato.
Oh, a slicing tomato, yeah.
And you mentioned one that was sweet, or one of our listeners did.
Yeah, what was it? Pineapple.
Pineapple, yeah. Slicing tomato, pineapple for sandwich.
Yeah. Yep. That's a good one for a sandwich for sure. Yeah. There's so many varieties. It's really cool. And it's almost hard to grow tomatoes every year because obviously when you find one that you like, you want to keep planting it.
Right.
Why not? It's safe. You like it. You know it. But then at the same time, you see something new and you're like, ooh. So I always do.
I
always do 3.
The glitter and the glitz.
Yeah, I always do 3. I do a cherry tomato, and that one can change and rotate because I kind of feel like, I don't know, I don't need the same cherry tomato every year. I do a big slicing tomato.
Right.
And then I always do like a really obscure, weird one that I've never done before. So the cherry tomato and the big slicing tomato, they could be the same one year after year, or I change it up maybe depending on what strikes me interesting. But then I always throw in a random, Brad's Atomic Grape or, Carbon.
Now, there's a couple of 2 or 3 years ago, one of the tomatoes you gave us was a very small tomato.
Spoon.
And it wasn't
that small one. Remember, it was like almost like a jelly bean, like little guy. Yeah.
But they sweet, pretty sweet, I think. And I'd be out there working in the patio, and I would just pick them and eat them like grapes.
Yeah.
It was really, really good. But yeah, very small.
Yeah.
You said that's called spoon?
Yeah, spoon tomato. Tanya, how do I find out when San Diego garden walks are? I'll be in San Diego end of April for the Cactus and Succulent Convention. So for Tanya, I mean, there's a San Diego Home and Garden magazine that actually puts together a full list of all the different garden walks. I don't know if they continue to do that, but I mean, that is one way to do it.
Isn't there not one up in next to your nursery or not?
Walk?
In that neighborhood, that garden walk?
Yeah, there is one, and that one is Mother's Day weekend. So that's the
May.
First weekend, I think, in May.
So maybe a little bit past the time.
Yeah, but no, she might still be in town if she's. It says end of April for the Cactus Convention. So yeah, or I mean, you just Google Garden Walks San Diego, because there's the Mission Hills one, there's La Jolla,
right? There's
Point Loma. And these are all central San Diego ones. I think there's a Claremont one, and I think the other ones kind of get maybe like Encinitas or Escondido or more East County. San
the
Diego.
Cactus Convention that we're talking about. Now, see, that would be another one where you'd go because you're curious, and you would come across so many different varieties that you never even knew existed.
Really cool
you'd
varieties
say,
of cactus. Right?
That's a cactus.
Yeah.
That's a succulent? Really? I can grow that? Look at the colors. I didn't know that succulents and cactus had so many colors.
Yeah.
So we talked about the varieties of orchids. That would be another eye-opener.
My favorite, like my orchid cactus succulent is the new varieties of mangave. So a mangave is a cross between an agave and... I don't know, it starts with M-A-N.
A mango?
A mango.
Mangave.
But they're very cool colors and cool shapes, and the leaves on them are just very interesting. And there's a lot of varieties. So mangaves are my new passion.
Okay, hold on to that thought. Any other comments? It's break time for Biz Talk Radio. So again, thank you to Fertilome, major sponsor. We have other supporters too on Biz Talk Radio as we take this break. Do stay with us. Those on Facebook Live, keep those questions, comments rolling our way. We'll try to hit as many topics as we can today, whatever's on your mind. I'm Brian Main. John has the day off again. Tiger's with me. We're going to take a break. These messages for Biz Talk Radio. All right, just like that, we are back. We trust you had a good break. I love the fact that on Facebook Live, you can see our listeners back and forth with each other. asking questions, talking to each other. So we've got our own little community during the show on Facebook Live. You can be a part of that as well if you do tune in on Biz Talk Radio. Go to our Facebook page, Garden America Radio Show. Every weekend, 8 o'clock in the West Coast, 11 o'clock Eastern Time Zone. You can watch us live, interact, take part, and, hey, make some new friends on our Facebook page. It is Garden America.
Carla really liked my format of growing tomatoes. She says a disciplined and an effective way to grow tomatoes by having my three. My cherry, my slicing, and then my weird one. Tanya, she says, Tiger Camellia question. I planted a spring sonnet that I was planted around 1987. This year it has mini yellow leaves. I gave it iron about a month ago, but I don't see a change. Is there anything else to green it up?
What is the lifespan normally of that, Tiger?
Camellias can live
They
for
can
a
go
very
forever.
long time. Yeah, they can live for a very long time. So I don't think it has anything to do with the lifespan.
Is it in ground or a pot?
That's a great question, Tanya. Yeah, is it in the ground or a pot? But I think that I could help her out, just from that, because number one, iron is very easy to identify. An iron deficiency is very easy to identify on a plant because it's yellow leaves with green veins. So meaning, the leaf is yellow, but the little veins in the leaf are still green. That's an iron deficiency. So it's easy to kind of see that in the plant. So if that's happening, you putting on iron is great. There's a lot of ways that iron is delivered to the plant. So you might want to look at the iron product that you used, whether it's chelated iron or liquid iron or different things like that, because sometimes that could affect the way that the plant absorbs it. But if it's just yellow leaves on the camellia, so an overall, that could mean another couple things. It's not an iron thing. Number one, camellias are an acid-rich fertilizer plant. So using a proper fertilizer is going to be important because it has to do with the pH of the soil. I was
going to say it's a pH, right?
Yeah, and if you keep using regular fertilizers, over time you change the pH of the soil, and now the plant doesn't absorb it properly. And I know for a fact that's very true because my gardenias, my camellias, I've been using regular fertilizer for a long time. They were great. And then I started seeing this issue where no matter how much fertilizer I put on them, they weren't changing, they weren't growing, they weren't greening. Then I switched to acid fertilizers, and I do now see a change. So number one, you want to be using a camellia or azalea fertilizer or something that's going to change the pH to be more properly aligned with the plant. But then also camellias get this yellow overall leaf, sometimes through sporadic parts of the plant, and that's usually due to a watering issue.
My next question was watering.
Yeah, so camellias are very hardy shrubs, and they can withstand a lot of difference. And yours has been there for, what are we going on?
87.
30 years now.
30 some odd years, yeah.
Yeah, no,
28
almost
years.
40, almost 40, right? 87 to 2025.
Okay, so you get 97, 2007, 17. Yeah, so 38 years.
Yeah. Wow. That is impressive.
Yeah, I was going to say, the longevity, right?
Yeah, and so it's probably not so much a watering issue as more of a drainage root issue, which I recommend. Fertilome has a humic product which helps amend the soil, help improve drainage and things like that. So that might just be something you need to kind of look into is humic in the soil to help with the root health and development.
Speaking of putting things on our Facebook page, maybe a link to Fertilome. Is that possible?
Yeah.
And then while people are watching the show and listening to us, we talk about these products. You can click the link and then obviously support Fertilome as our major sponsor, but get some of the products that we're talking about. Now, you mentioned too that over a period of time, adding fertilizer can change the pH of the soil. I would imagine not just for what you're talking about, but for other plants as well, or are more plants susceptible to those changes in the soil, depending upon if the plant is more acid needing, higher pH or lower pH. So what's a good rule of thumb, if there is one, as far as fertilizing over the years in the same area with plants that may have some deficiency in the soil after a period of time?
Well, it's good to not feed your plants the same thing every day. So meaning,
Just like
you know,
us,
you
just
wouldn't
like
you wouldn't
humans.
survive on a peanut butter and jelly sandwich every day. You need to mix it up. There's
Yeah.
other foods that have other minerals, vitamins, you know, metals.
It's called flavor fatigue too.
Yeah.
Right?
You know, so same thing with plants that people think, oh, it's just NPK, throw it in the soil. Well, each product is delivered a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
Each product has other micro minerals and minerals and different, you know, elements in it that, you know, affect the way it's absorbed. And it could be lacking one and you keep putting the same thing in there and then it never gets it.
Right.
So it's good to, you know, not just mix up brands, but also mix up what you're fertilizing. You know, like I'm going to put the link right now to the Fertilome Humic product. This is a good overall product for your yard. I tell people to do once a year, just because it improves the soil health. So that way, whatever fertilizers you're using are more effective.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily a fertilizer by itself, but it helps the fertilizers become more effective and water absorption, pHs in the soil changes and stuff like that. So, you know, once a year, once every couple years is good to use this humic product. And again, it helps with like root rot issues or just overall concerns with your soil, like, you know, breaking down clay and other things like that. So, yeah. And then let me see if I can post this other picture. Let me see. Write a comment.
Yeah, you know, we talked about back in the old days of fertilization that you were fertilizing the plant itself, whereas nowadays, and it's been this way for a while, you're fertilizing the soil. You're fertilizing the environment. You know, the healthier the soil, the more effective fertilizers are going to be.
Yeah.
Or other additives.
Yeah, exactly. I am trying to see if I can post a picture of that.
Of your plant?
Yeah. I don't think I can post a picture in the chat. I'll have to post it to the web. I'll have to post it to the Facebook.
Okay, yeah,
there.
Facebook, that's even better.
Yeah. But let me see what else. We got all kinds of, man, they're
busy.
Going.
Busy beavers this morning, right?
Yeah. What is the rule of thumb for the maximum size of pot when I should use to repot my orchids? So, you know, Veronica asked this question, and this is a very common question. And orchids that are put in bark, you know, that you normally purchase in bark, they really don't need, the pot is insignificant. You know, like as far as repotting it, the repotting is more for stability, so it doesn't fall over, more so than it needs to be in the pot. So I have this really small Phalaenopsis that's only about as big as my hand, and it's in this pot that's only like a 2-inch pot, and the roots are all coming out the side of it. Well, I just have it propped up properly, and it's fine. It doesn't need anything more than that.
Right.
Now, if I was trying to put it somewhere where it was a standalone plant, I would need probably about a 4-inch pot now, fill it with the bark,
for
put
balance.
that in there, and its stability, right? So any of the, you know, those epiphyte orchids, it's the pot size is just for stability.
Some of those grow in trees.
Right. So they don't need a certain pot size. But now also then you can work into, you know, the Cattleyas and some of the other ones that are in soil. Those love to be crowded. So they don't want you to keep increasing the pot size either, because they love to be crowded in that pot and constrained. So as far as what is the pot size, I say it's more for stability. It's because even the ones that are crowded, you don't want to go super big, because then they won't bloom as much. They really don't like it. It's too much soil mass around them. The orchids are really prone, like people, you mentioned in the beginning of the show, people overwater a lot because they think these are tropical. They just need water all the time.
Got to have the water.
They like humidity, but they like drainage. And so in a big pot with a small orchid, you're giving it too much soil that'll actually rot it.
Much more than it needs.
Right.
Yeah.
So you just want to go up the bare minimum. And really, I think the golden rule is just stability of the plant. So whether it will fall over or not, or, you know, whether it can, you know, withstand being in that pot without getting knocked over or
Right.
blown over or something like that.
Okay, we are going to take a break again
Already?
for Biz Talk Radio.
Really?
We're moving right along, yeah.
Jeez.
And this is actually the next segment will be the last segment for hour one if you are tuned in on Biz Talk Radio. The Facebook page, the comments section is on fire this morning. Keep it going. Tiger Palafox, I'm Brian Main. John has the day off. Again, these messages are for you. You'll be listening to Fritalome and a few other of our major sponsors here on Garden America. Stay with us. Biz Talk Radio, Facebook Live. This is Garden America. Okay, we are back. We actually never went anywhere. We stayed in the studio, but we're back from the break. And if you are tuned in on Biz Talk Radio, this would be the final segment of hour number one. News coming up top of the hour. Then we usually come back at about 6 minutes after. 2 hours of Biz Talk Radio, one continuous show on Facebook Live. The veterans, the Facebook Live veterans and Biz Talk people who listen know this already. If you're new, that's new information.
Rick had a question. And this is kind of like a great reminder, a great checkup for everybody. And he asks, speaking of fertilizer, why is NPK different on the various products? What is point? I think what is the point of that, or why? So NPK, let's first off break that down. Do you remember what NPK is, Brian?
I think it has to do with, because we talked about this a while back, that different fertilizers have different.
They're all based on NPK. So it's nitrogen, phosphorus, and potash. NPK.
Oh, the potash is what I did not. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I know it's a K. It's weird, but it's potash. So those are the basic elements in fertilizer that give plants their value.
Now, would it be the difference? Would that be how it's delivered?
No.
To the soil? No.
No, it is simply the value. So, for instance, you might buy 100 milligram vitamin C.
Vitamins.
It's
like IUs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. And then you might have, whatever vitamin B in there, and then whatever vitamin D in there. And you take these vitamins based on these certain numbers, and that's basically nitrogen, phosphorus, and potash in fertilizers. And the generalization of all of this is nitrogen is for green or growing. So if your plants are yellow or you want them to grow, you want a high nitrogen fertilizer. That's why lawn fertilizers are usually only nitrogen.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not worried about flowering. You're not worried about overall health. You just want a green lawn.
And growth. Green and growth, right?
Exactly. Phosphorus normally is flowering, or I like to tell people also reproduction, because that groups into this whole like tomatoes and citrus and apples and avocados. Phosphorus is where a lot of plants get their flowering value from. So that's going to encourage flowering. There's a lot of products out there called like Super Bloom or Ultra Bloom. You would use it on your annuals or perennials to just get them to
high
bloom
in phosphorus.
more. High in phosphorus. So that's going to force the plant to flower more or reproduce more. So that's where that number kind of comes from. And then potash, that's kind of like your multivitamin. That's your overall plant health. A lot of root development value in potash. A lot of overall, bug resistance, disease resistance, health in the plant gets it from potash. Now, all soils kind of have those in there. So when you're planting in the ground, you're just kind of blending that into the soil, and then the roots absorb it. Now, the reason why you'll see fertilizers with different numbers is because, over the years they've done research and they say like lawns, they really only need nitrogen. We don't need to worry about putting potash in there. We talked about citrus and tomatoes. They're going to be higher in phosphorus. I'll tell you right now, organics are always going to be low. A number 5 is going to be high for an organic fertilizer because they're made out of organic products and they don't get the extreme numbers that you do from chemicals than in organics. But, you can buy a chemical 15, or like I said, I think a Super Bloom product, I think is like 30 for phosphorus, and it's got like 0 nitrogen.
So knowing what your plant needs, what particular species of plant, whether you're going to green it up, whether you're going to encourage flowers. And then there's the overall, the potash is the overall.
Yeah.
So So, Rick, yeah, it depends on what you're fertilizing and what it needs.
Yeah.
You know, is it grass or is it you want it to grow? So there's three factors basically.
Right. So those are the basics. And then you brought up a great question is how it's delivered.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about chemical fertilizers are forced on the roots of the plant. So they're forced into the plant.
On the root, again, and not the soil, not the environment.
Yeah. So even though a plant might not need nitrogen, chemical fertilizers force that plant to absorb it. And now there's effects down the road because of that. Organic fertilizers make the minerals and
available.
Yeah. But they don't force it.
So
into
the plant takes what it needs and how much it needs. It's there.
It's always there, but it's not forcing it into the plant. So therefore, the plant on organics are usually overall healthier. And so I'm not saying you never need chemicals. I mean, if I'm having a wedding at my house or a party and I want my plants looking great, I mean, go through, super bloom the heck out of it, miracle grow the yard. It'll be looking good for a while.
You hit the nail on the head there because a lot of people, well, what's the difference between organic and chemicals? And chemicals aren't good. And, chemicals are okay if applied responsibly and if applied because, like what you just said, Tiger, you need some quick growth. You need something in the short term as opposed to being a little more gentle with the organic and giving whatever particular aspect of the nitrogen, the potash, the phosphorus, whatever your plant may need at the time.
Yeah.
And I think that was good that you broke that down because that makes total sense. And it makes a lot of sense, too, as far as feeding the environment, feeding the soil, as opposed to feeding the roots of the plant, forcing the plant to take something when you should leave the plant alone in some cases and let the plant take what it needs as often or as little as it wants at that particular time.
Yeah, exactly. And so, John is always a huge advocate for not really fertilizing because he feels our soil's all, if you were to do a soil test, a lot of soils have like a lot of nitrogen. It's very rare that you're going to walk into a situation in your yard where your garden has zero nitrogen or zero potash or phosphorus. Like we're talking about, these are helping your plants. They're not always necessary. We go back to Tanya's camellia, iron, nitrogen, potash, what could be creating that's when you kind of step in with these products.
Sure.
Or you just want to encourage things to grow faster. Like we talked about, like you might have a slow growing plant. You want to grow it you want it to grow a little quicker.
Or like
throw a little bit of more nitrogen on it.
Or like me who has most everything in pots.
Yeah.
Okay. That I'm going to deplete a lot of nutrients quickly.
It goes right out the bottom of the pot.
It's going to go out the bottom. And so this is the time of the year right now, especially I've got to be very aware of that.
Yeah.
Because I've got to start feeding. I've got to start, like I say, when it comes to soil, topping off.
Yeah.
Now, the Ocean Forest bag that you delivered to me today.
Yeah, I actually brought you Recipe 420.
Okay.
Which is it's a good comparable product to Ocean Forest. I brought that one to you because
it has everything. It's got a lot in there.
It's got everything in there. It's already ready to go with a lot of fertilizers in there.
We got to take a break.
Good. Okay, and we got a question again from Tanya, I think, regarding is potash potassium.
Okay, so we're going to take a break for Biz Talk Radio. News coming up top of the hour for you. We come back at 6 minutes after with hour number 2 on Biz Talk Radio. Facebook Live much quicker. This is Garden America. Stay with us. A lot more ahead of us. Hey, as they used to say, or maybe they still do say, quick as a bunny, we are back here. Tiger Palafox, I'm Brian Main. John with a day off. Welcome, if you're Biz Talk Radio, to hour number 2. Lively discussions going on right now on our Facebook page with questions and comments. And just prior to the break, the news break for Biz Talk Radio, Tiger, a question we want to continue.
So we had a question, is potash potassium? And I'm going to answer it yes and no. It
was NK on the fertilizer.
NPK.
NPK.
Yeah.
And K is
potassium.
Potash. But
K is potassium
but the
on
K
the
is
elemental chart. It's very confusing,
so
right?
Why K?
Well, potash is a group of minerals that contain potassium. So it's not potassium, like it is not straight potassium. Right. And you could buy straight potassium for plants. But no, potash is not potassium. But you could say that potash contains potassium.
Okay.
So, it's there's a potassium chloride, potassium sulfate, potassium nitrate. Those are all potash. It is not straight potassium, though. And then, kind of what we're talking about with the camellias, acid-loving plants, they don't want a lot of potash because it increases the soil pH, which can be negative to the health of like azaleas,
right.
rhododendrons, camellias, gardenias. So, just a good note that if you do have those plants, you don't want to use a high potash fertilizer on those plants, kind of a thing. But so to answer the question, is potash potassium? No.
It contains potassium.
But it contains potassium.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So answer that question. And, man, we got so much. I can't even keep track of everything. Margaret says it's beautiful and sunny in Reading right now. That's wonderful.
Good. And it's going to be hot, obviously, another hot summer in Reading.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we do miss a question or comment, go ahead and repost it as we scroll up and down here to try to keep up with everybody.
Joyce wrote, is it too late to prune my Mexican lime tree? So Mexican lime, otherwise known as key lime or sweet lime, are the small limes, Brian.
Key lime pie.
The key lime pie. The small limes that you find usually in a grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
The bigger limes, the ones that are like the size of, what would you say a bear's lime is size of not a baseball. Not a baseball, but it's bigger than a golf ball.
Yeah, in between a golf ball and a baseball.
Yeah, what sports ball is in between a golf ball and a baseball?
A handball? No.
Yeah,
maybe
like a racquetball.
A racquetball.
Yeah, racquetball would be like a good size.
Let's go with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, those are bear's limes. So she's asking, is it too late to prune my Mexican lime? And no, it is not, because the Mexican limes, they're usually, they need to be thinned out a bit because they can grow pretty quickly. You do risk pruning off some of the blooms when you do it now, because it should be getting into the time of year where you're going to start to see some blooms. If it's a mature tree, though, there's going to be no lack of limes. So
right.
I would say if you're counting on your crop, meaning it's a young tree and you need all 20 limes it's going to produce this year, it is too late. But if it's a mature tree that is going to produce you 100 plus limes, no, you can prune it almost any time. Don't worry about it.
Now, is there such a thing as a hard prune or a soft prune?
Yeah, and that's a great question, Brian, because if you're in an area that's still going to get frost, you don't want to prune.
Right. Because
if you prune, you're going to encourage growth, and then if a frost comes along, it's going to damage the plant more.
You're going to stress the plant big time.
Yeah, you want to leave that tough, leathery foliage on the plant during a frost. So if she's in an area where she's going to get frost still, maybe hold off on pruning it. But she's asking, is it too late? Which I'm thinking she's in an area which is already warming up. And now you're warm for the next 9 months. So you're not going to have any problems with that. Yeah. Rick asks, is there a standard ratio of NPK? No. All-purpose fertilizers are usually like even numbers, 5-5-5, 10-10-10, 6-6-6. Oh, that was a bad one. Why did that jump through my head?
Okay, yeah. You may want to scrap that one.
Yeah, but no, there's not an overall this is a standard of practice. Like John uses Osmocote, and that has a weird jumping back and forth number.
Anytime John gives you a plant, a small plant for growth, he always puts Osmocote in it.
Yeah, because it's just a great time release fertilizer.
Yes, exactly.
So, an even number just covers all the bases. But I will say most soil has nitrogen in it. So even if you were to not do nitrogen and only phosphorus and potash, you're probably doing just as good as if you had a high nitrogen fertilizer. There's usually not a lot of soils lacking nitrogen. Yes, trees are flowering, and I did a few days ago. So based on the fertilizer info, now is the time to fertilize all my fruit trees. You want to wait to fertilize all your fruit trees until after your last frost.
This is March, but we're still going to get some cold weather.
It depends on where
we've
we've got people listening right now that are in snow.
In snow,
and it got snow in Julian last night.
Yeah.
Or 2 days ago.
Right. It's been cold, really cold.
So you want to not fertilize any fruiting tree until your last frost, because again, if you fertilize, you're going to encourage growth. If you encourage growth during a frost, more damage, more stress to the plant. But if you're free from frost, yes, now is the time to start fertilizing. Carla, I don't know if there's anything you can do to hurt a key lime tree. My husband pruned ours to basically the trunk, and it has branches with limes on it now. So
tenacious.
I think I've told this story before about my lime tree too, where I actually tried to kill it on accident.
Oh, yeah, I remember this. You wanted to see what it would do,
I
right?
dumped chemicals on it.
Yeah.
On accident, and like I thought it was fertilizer. I dumped chemicals on it, and it like killed it. And it's thriving now.
It came back,
Yeah,
obviously.
Exactly. So, yeah, it is pretty challenging to kill.
I had a discussion the other day with somebody about those that fire up by Montezuma, where I'm headed today. How those palms got
came back.
Scorched, and it didn't matter. They're coming right back.
Yeah.
Now, it still kind of smells of fire and smoke to some degree, but you look at them, you go, wow, look at that. They took it.
Yeah.
They took it. And those are
Washingtonians.
Washingtonians, right?
Yeah, Washingtonians.
Yeah.
Or Mexican fan palms.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Which so we covered the Tomato Mania. San Diego,
Santa Barbara
Mission
Orchid
Hills
Show.
right now. Santa Barbara Orchid Show. If you're in the Santa Barbara area, that's happening right now too.
Garden walks. You said to go online. You can find out about a garden walk in your area.
The Philadelphia Flower Show. So I saw the report after the Philadelphia Flower Show about some of the highs of the show. Obviously, a lot of wonderful displays. If you go and just go online and go to the Philadelphia Flower Show website, they'll show you a lot of videos or their social media of what happened over the past week over there. But I would say that the trend that I'm seeing right now with gardening is kind of more back into the flowers. So we went away from flowers for a while.
Flowers, color.
Yeah. I think a lot of people focus on like the edibles and vegetables and then we moved into this whole like drought tolerant, native grasses.
Save water.
Yeah, that kind of move.
Right.
Back to flowers. Lots of color, lots of perennials, lots of annuals. Because I think we're back into that time where they've done that cycle, and now we're seeing some new calibricos. We're starting to see some new petunias. We're starting to see some new different impatiens and things like that.
Right.
So lots of fun colors. So I think this year when you go to the garden center, you're going to see stuff that you haven't seen before. So if you're interested in doing, borders or container plants or just providing color, you're going to see that now a lot in garden centers this year. So get excited about that.
It's like fashion.
Oh,
clothes.
yeah, right?
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
In terms
what leads fashion? Is it gardening or is it fashion?
Yeah, and like in fashion, oh look, hey, bell bottoms are back, or look, long skirts are back, and in gardening, color is back, or no, now it's drought tolerant. Now it's whatever. So same kind of thing, and it recycles because every time something recycles, be it fashion or plants, you have new people either buying the clothes, young people, or somebody just starting out in gardening. So to them, it's new.
Yeah, exactly. Brian, Rochelle's saying, are you coming to the Aztec game? You mentioned coming to that area.
Oh no, I'm going to get a haircut up in that area. Once a month. Yeah. I go up to the college area and I drive through the freeway up through Montezuma.
One of Lenore's cherry trees is blooming in full bloom. Yeah, it's a weird season right now. It's going to be happening. Rick said that if you heard your soil is amended high in wood products, it takes more nitrogen to break it down. That means you need a fertilizer that is higher in nitrogen for soil amended in wood products. Now,
so what he's saying, or questioning or saying that if you have a wood product, that it takes more nitrogen to break down that wood.
Yes. So, which is true. And that's why, but it's true and false because that's where nitrogen comes from also. It comes from mulch in the wood. When it's breaking down, it will also release nitrogen. So, Rick, to answer that question, it's what we call a nitrogen-sucking wood, and that comes from when
we got to take a
companies-
break. I'm
okay.
so sorry.
We'll get to this question when we get back from
I
break.
apologize to the network. Back after these messages, Biz Talk Radio.
Yeah.
Okay, we are back. Yeah, this is my first rodeo trying to stay on time for the network here.
We talked about this last time that when it's just the two of us
We
and we
get
have to go
going.
back and forth,
I forget-
there's no downtime.
I forget we're doing a show.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is what
Forget
I have
there's
to,
a
I got to
clock.
keep us on time.
Forget there's a
here.
clock involved.
Yeah. From the moment you're on radio, there's a format clock. You got to stick with it. So my
Yeah.
apologies to Stephanie. Maybe you can make that work. Anyway, back to the show.
To answer Rick's question about wood products in your mulch or barks and nitrogen, okay? And normal mulches that are like natural mulches or compost materials actually have nitrogen in them
Already,
and they should break down and release that nitrogen, and it doesn't require more nitrogen to make that happen. But a lot of cheap mulch or compost products use wood products that are already been processed or kilned or heat treated or, so to speak, dead. So the best example I could use is sometimes you'll see a bark and it'll just have shredded up pallet wood. Mm-hmm. That wood is dead. It is dry, it is dead. There is zero value to that wood besides it is now takes up space in the bag, okay? So it requires a microbial chemical reaction to break down that and turn it into soil. So it sucks nitrogen and other things out of the soil to make that happen. So if you're using cheap mulches or a lot of time that stained bark product or a cheap compost, there's a very good chance that they're using wood products that are already, so to speak, dead, and they're no longer going to be breaking down in that natural fashion. Now, if you buy a premium compost or you buy natural mulch, those will not require more nitrogen to break down, and they'll just naturally amend your soil. So to answer your question, Rick, it really depends on your product. But if you know it's basically like shredded up 2x4s, yes, it will suck nitrogen out of your soil to help break that down. Okay?
You know what? There's not a template. People would love a template for all of this, but it depends on what you're growing. It depends on, we talked about the nitrogen, the phosphorus, the ash, all of that, to know what it is you need out of whatever it is you're growing. I mean, you talked about fertilizers that have a 5-5-5 kind of general. And I guess that's a basic platform, a starting point. But then from there, there's all kinds of variables, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Lots of variables.
Yeah. This is a great question from Carla. Let me get some info on it because I'm familiar with it. And I saw this same, Carla, where did you see the ad? Because I saw this same ad. I think it was on TV, and it kind of intrigued me. And
I saw that too. Is this Spruce?
Yes.
I just saw that commercial. Safe around pets, safe around everybody, no problem.
Yeah, exactly. So, because, everybody's all up in arms with the whole glyphosate issue.
The first thing I thought of was Roundup, that okay, Roundup's got all this publicity for how dangerous it is, cancer-causing, so on and so forth.
Right.
And without them directly mentioning that, just based on the ad itself, you knew kind of what they were saying, what their point was.
Yeah, exactly. So, geraniol oil is the essential oil that's in it. Corn mint oil is also an essential oil that's in it. And then sodium lauryl sulfate, which is salt, which is in it as well. And so kind of, back to what we've talked about, I'm not gonna talk badly about this product. Like it probably works, and
we don't have any experience with it.
Well, no, I'm just gonna say it probably works. I mean, from what its ingredients are, it's going to work, and it's going to kill weeds. But to say it's safe, I would argue that there's no herbicides out there that are safe in the sense of there's a lot of herbicides out there that now use clove oil, thyme oil, all these oils, right? And they're basically dehydrantants, so they get onto the foliage and they dehydrate the plant, and they work, and they are safe. They're, if you were to go drink this product, it's not going to be harmful to you.
That's the acid test right there.
It's
Can
not
you
going to be
drink
anything.
it?
But I will say a lot of them contain salt, and that's the residual effects in the soil are way more harmful than some of the chemicals out there that did the same job.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to be careful with where you use it and how you use it, because sometimes you can almost do more damage with these safe products than you can do with some of the other chemical products. Like, for instance, there's a lot of, Fertilome has selective weed killers. So meaning they have chemicals that you can put in your lawn that's going to kill weeds but not kill the lawn, or kill weeds in your flower beds but not kill the shrubs in your flower beds. Mm-hmm. They're very selective.
It targets, right.
Right. Well, those are really easy to use and safe to use. Yeah, it's a chemical. You're not going to want to drink it. It's not, good in that way, but it's easier to use and to some degree almost safer to use for you, where some of these other products that are going to just, put salt on the plants,
you're
going to kill a lot of other things in your garden, do more damage. And a lot of the chemicals, do your research. You don't want to overdo them or let them get into waterways or have your kids out there or your pets out there when you do it. But a lot of them, once they're dry, become inert, and they're safe again. So it's funny. I did see that ad. And I think I saw it on TV.
Yeah, it was.
And it's that spruce herbicide. Uh-huh. And, I'm sure it works, and I'm sure it's a good product, and its ingredients are safe for people and for kids and for pets.
Being safe and how it's applied.
Yeah.
Two different things.
Yeah.
Right, the application. And I love the go-to. It's always the go-to, safe for kids and pets. However, not safe for most adults or your next-door neighbor. Only safe for kids and pets.
Yeah. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if it was safe for kids and pets and not adults?
Not adults.
Like, where did that come from? Wait a minute.
Kids and pets. But yeah, application, exactly. Like you talked about. Yeah, sure, it's safe and it won't do this, but it may get into the soil and it may harm something else. So,
yeah.
You know what? Trial and error.
Yeah, exactly.
We got about a minute till the next break.
All right. Let's see here. Where did I go? Where did I leave off of? I got to review it. The Royal Lee. I forget if it's self-pollinating. Oh, she's talking about what did she have? A cherry. Was it a cherry? The Royal Lee?
You know what? You can look this up because we can go to a break.
Okay.
Right now, which is what we're going to do. And that means for Biz Talk Radio Facebook Live, we have 2 more segments coming up. So still plenty of time for your questions, your comments. Very active today on Facebook Live. So again, going to take a break for Biz Talk Radio. Thank you to Fertilome. I'm Brian Main. John is off today. Tiger's with me. This is Garden America, back after these messages, these words from the many sponsors on Biz Talk Radio. Stay with us. All right, just like that, we are back from the break. This is our long segment. 2 more segments to go here. As Tiger mentioned earlier, when it's just Tiger and myself, we just tend to chit-chat and forget that we're on the radio, on the internet, on Alexa, Spotify, Pandora, Google, all those places.
It all.
Covered it all. So back to what you were researching during the break.
Yeah, so the Royal Lee Cherry does require a pollinizer. So Mini Royal or Royal Crimson is going to be your best pollinating choice. So who was it? Lenore. Lenore had the Royal Lee cherry that was in full bloom right now.
In full bloom.
Yeah, exactly.
And I imagine it's still very cold where she is. Canyon country?
Well, she says she's getting full blooms right now. So I do worry that. Well, I'm not so much worried necessarily about the cold, but a storm coming through and knocking off all those flowers. Yeah. All those flowers are potential cherries.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a bummer if it is early and. You've got to watch out for that. I mean, there's really nothing you can do. It's nature, but
can't stop the storm.
It's not fun. Go out there and hug it, put a bag around it, protect
Right.
it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's the tough thing when you're earlier we talked about the Mexican lime and is it too early to prune it? And that's something that people don't worry about as their trees mature because there's going to be no shortage of apricots or apples or
Right.
limes or as the tree matures you almost are like, oh my gosh, like it'd be better if I had less production this year.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to have too
That's why
many.
people bring all those lemons to work, people, and say, here, have some lemons, have some avocados.
Right. Avocados, although I don't know if people are going to be bringing in avocados. Avocados are now like eggs also. Like
Right.
people don't just bring those in and give them away anymore.
There was a sales guy here last month or so who brought me 2, and they were really good.
Yeah.
Oh, I had to let them ripen a little bit, but they were good. One day
Perfect.
we had 2. Then the second one day I squeezed it. It was real soft. I went, hey, we have to eat this today.
Yeah.
Now.
Just cut it open
Cut it
now.
open
and
now.
Eat it. Put a little bit of salt on it.
Anything.
A little lime.
Yep.
I love avocado. Yeah. I'm going to prepare an area. I've yet to plant. I planted a tree, but then we did that construction and it was in.
You're contemplating an avocado tree?
No, I am going to. I can't
You
wait.
are.
I got to get it in the ground.
Shallow root system, obviously.
I know.
All
I'm
that.
ready.
You're going to trip
ready.
over it. Kids are going to trip over it.
No, they're not. I'm putting it in the back of the yard. It's away from everything. It's going to be my secret stash. It's going to be my retirement. If I have
Secret
one
stash.
avocado tree, I'm going to retire off of that thing.
Secret stash. That's good. Everyone needs a secret stash. What's in that box? My secret stash.
Yeah.
Those from the
exactly.
60s and 70s know what we're talking about.
Yeah, those. I love it. Yeah, in California, it's not a secret anymore.
No, not at all, right? It's right out in the open.
Yeah, you got billboards for it.
So, March. This is March 8th. We got more rain coming here in Southern California. Still cold in many parts of the country.
Yeah.
But, I'm inspired. It's so funny that soil inspires me to go out, transplant the ficus that I have,
It's a beautiful weekend to do it.
fertilize a little bit, HB 101 on a few tired-looking plants, and then basically fill up the rest with soil. I may need another bag in a week or two because I've got to fill. We talk about soil in pots and drainage
Yeah.
to top them off, as
Yeah.
I like to say. Because
Yeah.
I don't want to I don't need to completely
Yeah,
replenish it.
Well, I thought of this when we were talking earlier, and I know I've brought this up before because we were talking about fertilizer, we were talking about pots, and people need to realize, like a lot of the nutrients in the soil goes right out the bottom of the pot.
Right.
The plants take it up, and unlike natural soils, it doesn't just replenish itself. Meaning
There's nothing to replenish. It's in a pot.
It's in a pot. It just decreases, and if a plant is growing, it's using that soil to grow that branch, to grow those leaves, to grow those flowers. So it's constantly using up what you're giving it.
Which, if you came over and saw the condition of most of my plants in the patio, you'd say, hey, they look pretty good, because they do.
Yeah.
And I would have to be honest and say, I don't really replenish the soil as much as I should. And I'm feeling guilty because the plants are like, hey, we're hanging on.
Yeah.
Don't know how much longer.
A little help. A little help here, please.
Need a little help. But point well taken that in the ground, they have the resources of the soil around them to get the nourishment and the nitrogen.
Yeah.
Not in a pot.
And, debris falls down onto it, and then it turns it into nutrients. You got worms moving through it all.
It's a whole life cycle.
Yeah, it's a whole thing.
I do have worms in my patio.
No, I mean,
Fishing worms.
but like we say, in a pot,
Yeah.
whatever you give it is whatever it has. And if you don't give it anything, eventually one day you're going to go out there and those plants are not going to look good.
They're not going to look good. One plant that's looking good, actually, it's a tree, the Australian bottle tree.
Mm-hmm.
So when John gave it to me, it was about maybe halfway between my waist and my shoulders. It's a good 18 feet. And now John always says, yeah, really, sure. I go, I'm going to take a picture. It's huge. This thing is huge.
How is the bottle part of it?
Oh, how
Like the
big is it?
bulb
Like
is-
the bulb? It's
Yeah.
Well, I transplanted it probably about a month after John gave it to me to a
Mm-hmm.
big pot. I don't know. Again, we're trying to
Volleyball? Basketball?
volleyball. And
Because
It's real-
it stores water in there.
It does
So they
store water.
swell They swell, and then they also use it up. So
that's why John
it's not
says be
always
careful
the
on the
same.
watering. Be careful on the watering. Like what you said, it stores water.
Yeah. So it swells right now, and then it'll deplete it a bit through the summer months.
How big is it? Put it this way. In the last 2 or 3 days with the rain and the wind, it knocked over 2 or 3 times. I had to go out there and, pull it back up again. That's how tall it is. Because
so you need a heavier pot.
Or what I do, whichever way it blows over, I just move a pot next to it so it can't blow over.
Can't blow over anymore?
Well, just at least during the storm.
Yeah. A bigger pot or heavier pot? What do you think? Would you need? Does it need a bigger pot?
I don't think it needs first of all, I don't need it to get 25 feet.
Right.
I'd say a heavier pot might be more.
So a heavier pot. Because that's another question, right? Like, meaning we talk about stability of pots. A bigger pot would make it more stable. Right. But if it doesn't need a bigger pot, then you just buy a heavier pot, and that way it's more stable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I do need the doctor needs to come by this weekend, and I'm the doctor. And check up on the patients.
Oh, I love it. So that's funny.
God, I love new soil. Opening that bag, all warm, and just want to run your hands through it.
It smells good too.
It does. Yeah. It's like when I work here, when they cut the grass, you go out there and smell that grass, or the landscapers.
Yeah.
Grass.
Yeah. Fresh cut grass.
If I was a kid, I'd be rolling around and getting an itchy back.
Oh, so itchy.
Now,
Isaac hasn't learned that lesson. Him and his friends are wrestling out there, throwing grass in each other's shirts and stuff. And I'm like, then he comes home and he's like, "Oh, I'm so itchy." I'm like, "Yeah, because you just ran around in grass and threw in each other's shirts."
What's in the grass that makes you itch?
Like, I don't know.
Right.
It's an allergy.
But I remember as a kid, grass make you itch. Like, well, what's in it? It's only when you become an adult. Or,
Well, no, you
start
just
asking
learn not to do it.
No, but I'm saying when you ask these questions, when you're a kid, you just take it for granted. Yeah, grass makes me itchy. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. What's in the grass that makes you itch?
Let's see what it is.
There's something going on. And is it all types of grass?
I know that there are grasses, more some
that make
others.
You itch more than others. Yeah.
Okay, the grass has tiny hairs, and these help protect the grass from being eaten by insects and animals, damaged by ultraviolet rays, or losing too much water.
It's the fine
Trichomes can also cause tiny scratches to the skin, and then the skin reacts by becoming red and may feel itchy.
That's it.
So it's like a twofold thing. It scratches you, and then that allows the allergies in the grass and all that to have a reaction in the scratch, which is now what makes you itchy.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Okay.
So next time,
so grass with less trichomes,
little
hairs,
fibers,
is going to be less itchy grass. So that's why fescues probably are more itchy than a Bermuda grass or some of the other ones out there.
So next time he says I'm itchy, say, well, you know why, don't you? No,
the
Dad,
trichomes.
why? And you can tell.
Yeah, exactly. That's funny. It scratches you. Small cuts. So you're just getting a bunch of small cuts.
A minute to go. Rick wants to know how you get orchids to bloom.
So, Rick, we were talking about Phalaenopsis. We're talking about they need cold, so that triggers it to bloom again.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of other orchids are like that. They're temperature-based bloomers. There's a lot of fertilizers out there that say, if you bloom with this, if you fertilize with this during this time, and then this one at that time. There is some truth to that, but more so it's time and cycle. Orchids are not huge feeders. Again, these are being epiphytes. Like, they don't have soil. They're not sucking up huge sources of nitrogen and phosphorus and potash and requiring all these minerals. A lot of their nutrients just comes from the water that rains down on them. And so, we might not be able to provide it that, but you can provide it other ones.
Break time.
Mild fertilizers.
Break time. One more segment coming up here on Garden America to stay on time. Brian Main, Tiger Palafox. Be right back, I should say, with our final segment. All right, just like that. We have returned already, Tiger. We talk about this every time it's just you and me. Final segment, very quick show. We covered a lot. I'm so glad. No guest today, but the viewers, listeners on Facebook Live kept us going. A lot of great questions. Yeah, a lot of great stuff out there happening right now. And it is the time of year. We're getting into it with spring. You're planting your tomatoes. You're planting your spring gardens. No peppers quite yet. You're getting into the cucumbers and, that kind of stuff. Not quite yet. That's along with peppers.
planting your spring flowers. So now's the time where we're transitioning from pansies to petunias. Stock, all kinds of wonderful annuals and perennials.
Speaking of peppers, what's the hottest pepper you've ever eaten or tasted?
I don't know. I probably just jalapeno, or not. Probably just habanero.
I cannot go past that. I'm not a ghost pepper. I can't even taste it. Carolina Reaper.
I can't taste it.
Well, there's some people actually on YouTube that have these channels that they're connoisseurs. They're like wine tasters, and they'll have 2 or 3 peppers in front of them, very hot, and then they'll take a bite. They'll go, okay, now the heat's starting to come up, a little sweet, then it gets kind of soury, and they're breaking it all down. If it was me, I would just be like, my tongue's on fire. I can't taste anything. Get me out of here.
Well,
but they savor it.
You know what we should do, since we do Facebook. We do
Facebook.
We do Facebook Live, and it'd be fun to watch. There's a show that is out there for a lot of celebrities where they bring them on a show, and
it's called It's the Hot Ones.
Yeah, and they eat like chicken wings,
and
right?
They go right down the line. They start with kind of a mild sauce, and all the way until.
And there is truth to it that when you eat these foods and you have this reaction, you tend to tell the truth more. Like you don't hide,
right?
You don't guise yourself as much. So it's a great interview process because you can ask some real revealing questions, and the people will answer them.
Millions. It's a great concept. I forget the guy's name. There's like 16 million subscribers. And they have no problem getting celebrities on there.
I know, which is super funny because they tell really revealing stuff about themselves.
Because he'll interview them.
Yeah.
Well, back in the late 80s, this movie you were in, and tell us about the director and stuff. And they're eating, and you're right. It's almost like Truth Serum.
It is. And so we should do that one time where, now
I can't eat anything. I'm telling you, I can't go past
but that just means after a couple chicken wings, you'll be spilling your guts.
Yeah, and there's people that have no business eating these ghost peppers or Carolina Reapers, and they panic.
Yeah,
because there's no relief, and they get up and they're doing like a tribal war dance.
Well, there's all the things like eat salt, drink milk.
Well,
none of it really makes it go away.
But you're right. First of all, water is like throwing gas on a fire. People want to drink water. Ice cream or dairy is probably the best thing you can do.
Right.
Milk, ice cream. But not water, not anything
But it
else.
doesn't make it go away.
No,
you still have to just suffer through it.
It curtails it a little bit.
Yeah,
it curtails it because some of these challenges you eat it and you got to wait 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Before you have anything, milk, dairy, anything.
And it's funny we talk about this in talking about being gardeners. And yes, if we have peppers in our yard. We usually are pretty savvy to that as far as working, and then you rub your eyes or something, and you have that on your hands. You got to be real careful.
That's why
with
you should wear gloves.
But there's even other plants out there that you got to be real careful of too. So
we have
working in the garden.
We have a pencil plant.
Oh yeah, that has that milky white substance.
That Dana got
sap
probably 35, 40 years ago before we met, which I inherited. It's in the patio, but yeah, you got to. I wear goggles around that thing.
Yeah.
Because
you
you're right.
Burn your skin.
Yeah. So, who knows? It looks so innocent out there,
Yeah.
And
agaves. Me working with a agave too. When I cut it, I'll be very careful. I'll wear long sleeves. I'll wear gloves. I'll be very careful. It always gets me.
Yeah.
I don't even know how. It gets me. It gets me.
Gardening's dangerous.
It is very.
You just don't get out there and just willy-nilly start cutting things.
Not
down
all of us are cut out for it.
That's true. That's true. Okay, a couple of 2 or 3 minutes left. I think. Are we caught up?
Let me check.
Have we done our job?
Yeah. Right. I think we answered a lot of questions.
Milk and yogurt. Yeah, that's a good one, Lenore.
Let's see here. Wow. Waiting a long anticipated launch this evening. Oh, Colleen's up there in Lompoc, and they're going to see a launch.
Oh, is that Vandenberg up there?
Vandenberg.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oops.
The silence is deafening, isn't
You're
it?
right. All right, here we go.
2 minutes.
Ghost peppers. No. Milk, yogurt.
And of
best
course,
peppers are the Serranos.
Every year, somebody's trying to come up with the hottest pepper on earth. They're measured by Scoville units, as most of us know.
I don't know if Margaret's going to be able to answer this question. She wrote, get some colder temperatures. I'm thinking you're talking about orchids and banana water every couple weeks. What is banana water?
What is banana water?
The UT, we're talking about list of garden tours. The UT
Union Tribune
in today's edition has a list of garden tours. So Union Tribune, which is the local newspaper here.
Right.
You can probably go online and probably see that article on their website there. We're all caught up. Lots of great answers. Hopefully people will be more successful today after listening to the program and they learned a
I'm
few
inspired.
things.
Go
Are
home
you?
and- yeah, I really am. I want to transplant. I want to top off some soil. I want to do. I hesitate to do too much feeding, but I don't get that cold. I should be okay.
Yeah, you'll be fine.
We're in the
You're
40s.
protected too. You're in a patio.
And we're in the 40s. We're not 32, 35 degrees.
Yeah, you're not you're even during the dead of winter. You're not very frost stricken in
No.
your area.
And it is protected.
Yeah,
So,
be fun. Get out there. Do you ever use your fish tank water in your plants?
yeah, when the guy comes over, 'cause
Yeah.
I usually I kind of help him a little bit. I say, yeah, go ahead and dump the water out there in some of those plants.
Yeah,
Just don't dump it in the plumeria, but dump it, everywhere else.
it's probably got good stuff in there.
Oh, it's got
Like
absolutely.
because you can't have too many chemicals in that
no, because
water
you know what?
to the
We're not
fish.
using city water anymore.
Well, but I'm just saying you
Especially.
can't have a lot of chemicals in fish water anyway.
No, not at all.
So
Now, one thing I did learn, though, going to more purified water, is he still has to treat that purified water because it lacks certain nutrients and good bacteria
Right.
that the fish need.
Yeah, too pure.
With that in mind, that's going to do it. Tiger, thank you. John is back next week. For the rest of you on Biz Talk Radio, Facebook Live, thank you for tuning in. Hope we all learned something today, good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah.
So enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll reconvene next week right here on Garden America. For the entire crew, again, I do want to thank Stephanie at Biz Talk Radio, her and her team. For the entire crew here, John Bagnasco, Tiger Palafox, I'm Brian Main. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Be safe. We'll do it again next week right here on Garden America. Take care.